y'all, Jill here with Whispering Willow Farm. I am so excited as we have transitioned into June. We are of course doing another garden tour. So this is going to be a full garden tour of our 20 by 50 high tunnel where we grow 80% of our family's food needs. And then we're going to take a peek into our medicinal cottage garden where we have a few annuals and perennials. So come on, let's take a look. So out here we have got a ton of things. You will see we have our Tulsi, which is a holy basil, just taking over the front. We have some beautiful nasturtiums that we will be making some pesto with. We like to put these on our salads. They're stunning. Back here in the corner, we've got thyme that's starting to come up. We have calendula, our sweet alyssum, which is really starting to bush out. Here on our trellis, we've got some little personal melons that are finally starting to grow. We've got our chives in the corner, some oregano, and then over here on the other side of this trellis, we also have our melons. These things are officially going wild. I have been trying to train them up some, which has been kind of successful, kind of not. All right, so we'll walk in here a little bit. You'll notice there's lots of containers just with a bunch of random things. This has dill that we've been pulling from as we're making pickles. We've got some lavender that we've just been drying for some different medicinal purposes. Over here, we've got more lavender in pots. I'm really impressed. Our rosemary, which I've got kind of tucked here in the corners, is doing really well. And these are some fun echinacea. I'm not growing these for medicinal properties. It's a different variety that's grown specifically for cut flowers. And so you guys can see here, it's just this beautiful color. I'm really excited to kind of use those. We've got our sweet alyssum. We can move back here into this section. Our borage has been incredible. I will say I come out here every day and find our entire hive. So that's really cool. So we have some more sweet alyssum kind of tucked. Hello, buddy. Kind of tucked in here. Some more holy basil. This is actually a butternut squash that I thought I could get to climb, but it is not working out in my favor. So that's kind of an experiment. Stay tuned if we rip it out or if we keep it. We've got some sorrel tucked in here, some bronze fennel, some sage. You can come over here to our Vigo bed, which we have a ton of herbs in that need to be cut back. We've got our nasturtiums, our basil. We've got some cilantro that is obviously going to seed. We've got lemon basil. Our chamomile is actually producing chamomile, so I'll come out here later today and harvest those. And we've got some sage up front. Literally walk over here and you are just kind of taken back with the fantastic aroma of herbs and flowers. It's absolutely stunning. So I've been really impressed. This is a 2x4 Vigo bed on wheels. I just thought it would be fun to have it, and I have been so impressed at what all I can grow in it. I'll put the link for it down below. But it's been a really good one. So let's take a look back over here, check out our L shape, and then we'll go into our food tunnel. All right, so in here we've got the squash as well, to be determined. We've got our calendula, some echinacea, sweet alyssum, sage, a rudbeckia, and these beautiful flowers here. Look at these fun little spikes. I've got those kind of, I think they're valerian, I believe. I've loved them. So fun. Our toothache plant is doing really good. I can come out here and I can start harvesting off of that. Our sorrel is nice and big. You guys can see here. It's got a fun, lemony taste. So if you were to like squeeze a lemon on something or even in a salad, you could use this instead and it tastes incredible. All right, so here we have our bee balm, which is really taking off. We've been gone for a few festivals and this was probably half this size by the time I left. So I've been really impressed with that. You'll see we've got more of our flowers, more sweet alyssums, some more chamomile, sorrel, and the columbine. So this bed will eventually just kind of be overflowing with abundance. I've been really impressed at how massive these nasturtiums have gotten, and we officially have our first rudbeckia bloom of the season, which is really fun. But then tucked behind here, we have purple sage, we've got some chamomile, and of course our melon climbing up. So over time, this will just start to spread. Some of these are annuals that will self-seed, but then a lot of these are perennial flowers and perennial herbs. So we'll just kind of deep mulch them in the fall and the winter, and then they'll come back in the spring, and this will probably be the first garden on the farm that's actually blooming, which is really, really fun. So we've got some weeding to do, we've got a few maintenance things, but overall, I'm pretty pleased with how it looks. So our green stock is still holding on. Unfortunately, we had outsourced some bag soil that had chicken litter in it that was hot, and we did not know that because it was not stated. So really, really important to make sure that you're reading your labels and maybe even testing small spaces, because you'll notice here there's quite a few pockets that are not full, and that is because the soil was too hot. That compost hadn't broken down and actually burned up a lot of my plants, which was really devastating. But we still have some stuff here. We've got some basil, some lemon balm, some Persian carpet zinnias, we have nasturtium, some sage, some holy basil, more sage, sweet alyssum. So what we're gonna do is just let the soil cool down some. Honestly, probably will not plant it again until late summer and into fall, just to make sure that we're not burning up anything. But I guess these plants are the survival of the fittest, right? Because they could withstand a little burn and they still kind of bounce back. But green stock is great. It takes up vertically only 2 square feet. You can see I have a lot of flowers and herbs in here, but you can certainly grow a lot of food as well. So I like to recommend it if you're on a small space, right, and you're trying to crank out different food. I've grown little micro tomatoes in here, and I've grown pepper plants, and I've grown cucumbers, and I've literally grown everything you can think of. But I don't know, it's just a fun way. I like to kind of set them around the garden to just, you know, add some beauty, attract some pollinators. If you need to grow food in them, you certainly can. But let's go take a look into our food tunnel, because this is where all the magic happens for our family here on the farm. Hey guys, Future Jill popping in real quick to take a second and thank Skillshare for being today's video sponsor. Now, maybe you find yourself like me and we tend to live under a rock. Well, that's kind of how I felt, because it wasn't until that long ago that I discovered Skillshare and my life has been changed. It is one of the largest online learning platforms for creatives like me and creatives like you. So whether you're a crazy entrepreneur, whether you're wanting to dive into a new hobby, or just really expand on a skill, I promise there is an eager expert just waiting to teach you and educate you on the topic. Y'all, I've literally dived into so many classes, it's a little bit insane. I have done productivity in Notion, I have done Canva, I've learned thumbnails, editing in DaVinci, YouTube scripts. I even was kind of in this whole food vlogging, food photography era, and I took every single class I could possibly find on it. And now you guys know, spoiler alert, we're gonna be launching our first podcast in just a few weeks. So of course, I had to hop on Skillshare and figure out everything I might be missing or what I needed to know. I'm happy to report that there were quite a few things I learned along the way. So the first 500 people to use my link down in the description or scan this little QR code up here is going to get 20% off of your first year of Skillshare. Thought I'd mention too, in addition to your 20% off your first year, you're gonna have access to a 7-day free trial and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Make sure you check out the link in the description, and thank you again Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. But come on, let's hop back into the garden. All right, so like I mentioned, we are a family of 6. We are growing about 80% of our family's food needs, and a lot of that takes place right here in this 20 by 50 high tunnel. It allows us to grow year round, which is really key and crucial when it comes to growing about 80% of your family's food needs. And it has just been an incredible asset to our family and our farm. I have been growing in this tunnel for 4 years, but before we did this, I was still growing a healthy amount of food for my family outdoors. But if you're thinking about getting a high tunnel, leave a comment. We'd love to chat with you, answer any questions you might have. We've just absolutely loved it. But you can see here our tomatoes are rocking and rolling. In fact, after this garden tour, we're gonna be harvesting a bunch. So these are my Abigail varieties. They are a hybrid, but you just see there's massive clusters. We've been harvesting tomatoes for, I would say, several weeks now. So this year we are growing, I think, 3 different red slicers: the Abigail, the Pink Wonder, and the Rebelski. The Rebelski's kind of a tried and true. The Abigail, it's our 2nd year growing, and the Pink Wonder is an heirloom we haven't grown in many years, and we're bringing it back. I prune all of mine on a 2-liter system, and I will say I tested this year with some heirloom varieties. They did not appreciate it, so I don't actually know that I'll continue doing that method for those types of varieties. But you can see here, obviously, a lot's taking place. A lot of food's growing. So this is actually the Rebelski. So up here we had the Pink Wonder, but you can kind of see, I'll just take one of these off and show you. You can see this looks like an heirloom, right? It's got, I can just tell, just honestly because of how it's grown. So this is the Pink Wonder. It's not gonna turn fully red. It's gonna have a pink hue. Honestly, that's about what it looks like. But when you look at a hybrid over here, you can see the difference. So this is the Rebelski hybrid. And even just looking at it, you can tell. These look kind of like glossy apples. I mean, it's hard to explain if you've never grown an F1 hybrid, just how different. And one of the things I've noticed a lot too is a lot of my heirlooms are splitting. I've got quite a bit of splitting, even though we don't have any sort of, rainfall in here. Everything's done on drip irrigation. A lot of times splitting is caused by a lot of rain. But we don't typically find that here in our tunnel because we're controlling the water and obviously the environment. But I always like to just show a comparison because I do think it's crazy just how different these tomatoes look versus the heirlooms. But these are the Indigo Kumquats. This is actually a new variety I'm growing this year. They taste really, really good. In fact, we had some of these with the chicken salad last night. I was not expecting these to grow like a grape. What I saw online and what I thought I was ordering was a little round cherry, but these are growing like a grape tomato, which I actually don't mind. We eat a lot of grape tomatoes, but these have been fun. And then over here we have the golden sweet grape, which are a little bit smaller, but again, just a really nice orange, yellow, sweet grape tomato. Look how massive this tomato is. Do you see that? Look how big that thing is. You guys, that's gonna be a 1.5, 2 pound tomato. So these look incredible. We've got some trellising to do. You guys can see they're already falling over the top. So we've got some maintenance this week here in the tunnel. All right, so let's actually walk to the other side and I'll share with you guys kind of what they're looking like. We hard prune everything in here, but stuff's starting to rock and roll. So again, these are all the same varieties. That is going to be our Abigail, Rebelski, Pink Wonder, the Indigo Kumquat, and the Golden Sweet Grape. The only difference is I did grow some Dr. Witchy, and I have yet to see, oh, I bet they're right here. Yep, look, here's my Dr. Witchy. They're coming along, taking a little bit longer. So that is actually an heirloom I grew many, many years ago. Thought we would bring it back and see how it did in the tunnel. But you guys can tell there's just so much abundance in here. I mean, there are clusters. Back here, you can even look, I see a Dr. Witchy too, kind of dangling here. You see that one? Yeah, so that'll be fun. We aren't selling this year. So for those of you who are maybe new here, welcome. For many years, my husband and I grew for profit. So we would sell wholesale to farm-to-table restaurants, and so that's really what got us into learning and growing different varieties. Now we are no longer supplying any restaurants with food. We're just growing for our family, and we sell cut flowers for profit. So that's kind of been a fun transition to just grow with a different, thing in mind. Granted, self-sufficiency is a huge goal for us here on the farm, so we're thinking about that a lot, but we're not so much thinking about producing for our family and restaurants as well, which kind of takes the pressure off a little bit. But back behind me, these deer got in here. They ate all of our lima beans, and you can see here they have done a pretty healthy amount of damage to our carrots. And so these carrots are ready to harvest. And unfortunately, we do not have very many because they ripped them up and then they just left them. So a lot of them are soft, which is really devastating. So we will not be able to grow more of these until into the fall. So needless to say, we're not gonna have quite the harvest that we had hoped for this year, but that's okay. The varieties that we are growing, they're the same two varieties. They're great storage varieties. And so these are called the Napoli and the Bolero. I will pull one. They're just great little uniform. A lot of them get a lot bigger than this. What you see here, but we'll go take a look and come down here a little bit. Oh my gosh, look at this tomato. This thing is massive. These are just incredible, incredible. So down here, you'll see we have got stuff going to seed. And in just, you know, being transparent, these should have been harvested, which is why they're going to seed. These are different turnip varieties. We have a ton right now, so what we will do with these, we could save the seeds if we wanted to. All of this was just radishes. We still have a ton of radishes we can harvest, but we'll come back through and we will reseed this with all of the beans that the deer just demolished. So we'll come through this week, we'll harvest all these carrots, we'll harvest all these radishes and turnips, and probably plant this whole thing with lima beans so that we can store them, and we know beans are still gonna do well being planted in June. But I've shared with you guys plenty of times before, I really only grow the same variety of radish. It's a daikon radish, and the variety is Bravo. They're all about this size, so it's really nice because they store great. So not only do they store great, but we use them to eat fresh. We ferment with them. You can put them in any sort of stir fry. So as far as a radish, you're kind of getting more bang for your buck. Most radishes are between a 23 to 30 day seed to harvest. These are about a 70 to 75 day, but it's worth it because look at that radish. There's a lot that we can eat off this one radish. Here we have our Katrina cucumber. We have already harvested 100, 200 pounds off of these. And so you can see they are starting to show effects of that. And so because we're growing about 80% of our family's food, we're having to succession plant often. And if we know a plant's starting to just not perform well, it's starting to maybe get disease or die, we're gonna immediately pull that out and replant it with a new one. And so I have got these seeds already started. These will probably be in here another week, week and a half at best, and we'll just go ahead and replant a new one, because the more your plant's under stress, that's when you're gonna start getting aphids, that's when you're gonna start getting, you know, pest and disease. And so we certainly don't want that, because everything else in our high tunnel is thriving. And so what we'll do is just replace these with the new ones we've started and just keep that other round. But typically, you know, in this 3 foot by 24 foot bed, we can yield around 400 pounds of cucumbers growing this specific variety, which is crazy. And so we have been making a ton of pickles. We've been fermenting, eating fresh. We've been supplying family members with a lot of cucumbers. And so we could have certainly just grown this one round and put up enough pickles for a year for our family. But because we want to have some fresh eating throughout, you know, into the fall as well, that's why we'll go ahead and do another round, mainly just for fresh eating. I would say we probably have several gallons of pickles right now. That'll last us a good little bit, but that's what's in this entire bed behind me. Cannot recommend this variety enough. It is the Katrina, and I buy the seeds from Johnny Selected Seeds. I'll put it down below for you guys. So here I have my bush beans, and you guys, let me tell you, these things are wild. I actually had a lot of old bush bean seed, and it was kind of getting on the edge of no good germination. And so this is not typically the varieties that I would grow. I really like the Provider bean and the Trilogy mix, but these are purple potted, which you can see here. I've got some Dragon Tongue, which are these really just pink ones. So this is just kind of a hodgepodge of different bush bean varieties that I had. But you guys, this thing is loaded. We'll can some, but actually freezing is really, really easy if you have the freezer space. So I'm gonna have to come through today and just harvest a ton of these. And just for the sake of time, I'll probably freeze this first round instead of canning it because it'll be easier for me to do. I'll just vacuum seal it, you know, cold blanch it. It works really well. So this is just a variety of different ones. When I come back and reseed it, because we'll do 2 rounds of beans just to make sure we have enough for our family, that's when I'll probably do half of this bed with the Provider and the other half with the Trilogy mix. And the Trilogy is just a slender green, a slender yellow, and a slender purple. So they'll never get this big. They stay pretty small, which I actually really like. Over here we have our peppers. Here behind me is our Lunchbox mix, which they're gonna throw a few different, oh no, this is the Carmen. So this is the Carmen pepper. You guys can see they are green right now, but they're actually mature when they turn red. But you can use them now and they taste kind of like a bell pepper. Or if you wait until they're red, they're a sweeter pepper. I like growing these because you guys can see how massive they are. One of the things when I'm thinking through, how do we grow enough food to feed our family? We're a family of 6, and to grow 80% of our food needs, I'm trying to think about just like that radish, right? It's like, how can one pepper take the place of multiple peppers? And we freeze dry the majority of our peppers, and we will use them in gumbos, soups, stews, curry, everything. So we're relying on our peppers a ton during the fall and winter. So these are the Carmen peppers. Over here are the Lunchbox peppers, and so these are a little bit smaller, and you can see that they are green right now. Whoops, broke one off. You can see that they're green right now, but they'll throw orange, yellow, red, and these are really, really sweet. So we're more so eating these with hummus. These are more fresh, cutting up, throwing on a salad. So we have several varieties of those as well. This is absolutely crazy. It has not set a single pepper plant. So a couple of these I bought from a local farmer. I have yet to figure out what this variety is. You can see it is 2 to 3 times larger. Right here we have probably my husband's favorite pepper. We haven't grown this in a few years, and so since we were no longer selling, we knew we were going to bring this one back. This is the Chashito pepper. We're not preserving this at all, so I've only got 1 plant here. This is just for fresh eating. We like to cut little slits in the side. We'll put some butter in a cast iron and we'll blister them. This is like our appetizer for every meal in the summertime, and there is nothing better. If you've never eaten a blistered Chashito, you should. And then back here, this is actually a jalapeno, which I didn't realize that we had. And then right here we have this little basket pepper. And I've only got a few that are starting to set on, but they're just these little bitty baskets. And my plan for that was to cut them and stuff them with like cream cheese and other stuff and roast them whole. So you'll see I'm trying to think through different meals. I know we have enough of the Carmen peppers that we'll be able to preserve what we need through the winter. These are going to be fresh eating. This is also how can I make full meals out of it. So you guys can kind of see what I'm thinking through when it comes to what I'm planting. We also this year brought back the eggplant. It's been several years since we have grown eggplants, mainly because they are very, very susceptible to pests, which stinks. But we knew we could probably just harvest and then rip out. And so these we grew with the intent of, let me grab one, roasting whole. And really we are harvesting them about this size or a little bit bigger. And we're just popping them on the grill, roasting them whole, putting them in a tomato sandwich with some bacon. So good. And so these are really, really fun. They taste great, and because I know in my zone, which is zone 8A, if I were to grow an eggplant with a large eggplant, mine would probably be demolished from the pest before I even harvested a decent handful of the eggplants. But because these are smaller, they mature a lot faster, that I can get somewhat of a decent harvest before it's time to pull out these plants because they've been kind of eaten by the beetles. But if you know that you have beetles that are really affecting your other plants, I've grown these eggplants before just with the intention of them being a trap crop. And so essentially what that means is I'm just planting them so that all the pests will go here and leave my other food producing, crops alone. So I don't know, I was excited to bring this one back. And then down here, I was experimenting because we had some space. And so my idea was to run a string, just like my peppers, and to string these squashes on them. You can see that has not happened. So I'm not sure if we're gonna leave these, if we're gonna rip them up, if we're gonna try to trellis them. We'll see. This is very much so just an experiment at the moment, much like the experiment that we have outside. So unfortunately, the deer also made their way into our sweet potatoes. But we've got sweet potatoes here, and these are a vining sweet potato, and so the idea is that they would take over these big sections, throw down roots, and then produce tubers. This is also something that we're trying to test out. We've always grown our sweet potatoes outside, and we've never really had an ample amount of soil for them to kind of take over. And so our hope is that they will fill up in these sections, you know, throw those runners, which then produce tubers, and that this whole thing will be full. So I'd love to kind of check back with you guys to see if that was successful or not. Because really, you know, potatoes growing underground, so they need good loose soil, which we have in these raised beds. And so I'm crossing my fingers that this works, because if so, I think we can really make a dent in the amount of sweet potatoes that we are growing, because sweet potatoes are something we are still having to buy and source out because we don't grow enough. And then down here, we've got a crop that we have not grown in probably 10 years. And this is our purple whole peas. You guys can see they're already attaching to the trellis. It's so funny. We've grown purple whole peas a ton in the past, and I've never known them to climb like this. They've just kind of stayed bushy, but they're doing great. I feel like we'll probably be harvesting purple whole peas soon. And then back in the back part of this bed, we are still harvesting the last of our kohlrabi. We're kind of at the end of that season as well. Those are more so spring crops than summer crops. We grew the bees in the Tark variety. They were absolutely exceptional. But now there's one other space I want to show you real quick. All right, and then some real life, because we are not a Pinterest perfect garden. We are a real family who have 4 kids, running a business, all the things. You see, there's a lot of weeds, you guys, and I wish that, you know, it wasn't that way, but it's the reality for me, and honestly, it's probably the reality for you guys. So be encouraged. Despite the weeds, you can still grow a lot. That is why I like to interplant a ton though, because the soil is really modest, right? And if you don't cover the soil, it's gonna cover itself. And so I like to try to cram as much in my beds as possible. I love to interplant as much as possible, because I know if I do not fill that space with something, the soil is going to cover itself more than likely with weeds. But here we have our onions, and you guys, these onions are wild. I mean, these onions are massive. I do not think we've grown onions this big ever. So we have these sweet onions, which was all we grew this year, just a yellow sweet. And then in between it, I have got carrots, because they actually interplant really, really well. The onions actually make the carrots taste sweeter. And if you've ever had issues with your carrots growing wonky, grow them in between your onions, and it will kind of force them to be straighter. So I plant my onions every 6 inches in row, or between rows. And so in that 6 inches between the rows of onions, I can just plant, you could even do a radish, but I like to plant my carrots because it just tries to, you know, condense space. So I'll come show you guys real quick. Look how big this is. We will be harvesting all of these this week as well. But there's some pretty, look at this one. This one's massive. Look at that. So the key is, and we know this because we've grown onions for a few years, you have to go by and be very, very diligent in the beginning. I would say I probably let my onions sit for about a month. But then when I noticed even just the smallest little bulb, you want to go in and push back the dirt around it. And what happens then is it kind of encourages that onion to bulb up at the top. And so each week we were diligently coming out here. We were just moving back the soil around the surface. And when you did that, it just encourages that onion bulb to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So what we are actually probably going to do, because again, onions are one of those crops that we are using every single day, multiple times a day. We never grow enough of it. This was our spring summer round, but what we're going to do is we're going to start. We got lots of onion seeds, onions going to seed. So I'm going to be starting these onions, and we're going to sow another round. And so I'll sow probably another round in the summer, And then also another one, and probably because we're in a tunnel, can get another harvest before the frost. So my hope and my idea is that I will be able to grow onions 3 times a year in smaller sections, just because of all the other food that we have to grow. And then hopefully that will supply our family with enough onions for the year. And when we harvest these, we have a rack out on our back porch. We have these racks down in our basement as well. We will just lay them out to cure and dry. Then we'll snip the tops off and just store them in wire baskets in our house. So it's worked pretty well for us. But that's what's going on in the food tunnel. The last thing I want to show you guys is our cut flower garden. This is what we are growing to sell for profit. This will be our 5th year growing cut flowers for profit. And I want to show you guys because it's just so pretty. I love this and it's beautiful in its own way, but there's something about just throwing on your hat, grabbing your pruners, and just harvesting flowers for hours that you cannot beat. And so if you're looking to add some more beautiful annual or perennial flowers to your garden, I wanted to show you what we have going on in our outdoor grid. So let's go take a look. So here we have our cut flower garden. We've kind of overtaken our backyard. We've got 4 different quadrants, and we just kind of rotate these based off of what's growing and what's in season. But back behind me, we've got our cosmos, which are beautiful. We had some basil and celosia, and then we've got some giant white marigolds that we're actually going to be drying. And then if you take a look over here, we have our rows of zinnias, which we have harvested, and now we're direct seeding again. And then we have some cosmos and some more zinnias. These are just great for cut flowers, good foliage. If we walk over here, then over here we've got our little patch of sunflowers that we just keep on a succession. So as these are blooming, we'll just go back in and keep direct seeding. These are the Pro Cut Orange Excel. Honestly, they are kind of the only sunflowers I will grow just because they're amazing. Then in this bed, we've got some celosia, a lot of weeds. We've got some straw flowers, some different grasses, some Orlea, different filler things in here, some gumprina. So this is kind of like a lot of our fillers back here. Obviously the sunflowers are a good focal flower, but other than that, these are more just where we're pulling from to add with arrangements. And then here we have our dahlia patch, and you can see here they are certainly blooming. They are certainly gorgeous. We have been harvesting and harvesting dahlias, and they're really just now rocking and rolling, so I'm really excited. These are our big primary focal flowers we sell to a local, locally sourced grocery store. And so we've got this quadrant with dahlias, and then the next one we have some dahlias, and we'll have some other primary flowers in there as well. All right, and then we have another 20-foot by 66-foot Gothic high tunnel right here. And we also use that to grow cut flowers year-round. So in there right now, we've got snapdragons, amaranth, but our big, massive crop that we grow in there is Lisianthus. We have about 600 Lisianthus in there right now that are just tiny, tiny little babies. And so that is our flower tunnel that we're really pulling from to sell to florists and things like that. This area, we know we have more of the outdoor elements, so we hope for a good harvest, but you obviously just never know. We can control the elements a little bit more in our high tunnel. All right, you guys, that wraps up our June garden tour of 2025. Things are blooming. I will say this is the wettest spring we have had here in Arkansas in years. Some things, it's absolutely thriving and loving it. The dahlias would be a good example of that. And then other things, not so much. So it's been really fun to just kind of see as our seasons change, you know, just how our plants react. But I would love to hear from you guys. What are you growing? What is growing right now in your zone? What's your hot thing? You know, outside, our dahlias are obviously what is just cranking. I would say in our food tunnel, the tomatoes and the green beans are just popping off. I would love to hear from you. What's growing? What new varieties do I need to try? We're already thinking about fall. I will have to be starting seeds for fall late July, and so I'd love to know as well what you're growing. But thank you for hanging out with me, and I'll talk to you soon.